Hello and welcome to Business Spotlights, where today I'm joined by Chris McNeill, who's the Group Chief Executive of Cosmos Projects. Welcome, Chris.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
So lift the lid on what Cosmos Projects do, please. I know you're the Chief Executive of a group, so what do the group do?
The core business, Cosmos Projects, was formed in 2012, primarily a principal contractor, focused marketplaces, mainly Scotland, and the majority of businesses in the Central Belt. We have some repeat customers out with that in Fife, Angus, Aberdeenshire areas. We have probably have a fairly small list of clients in terms of the size of the business in terms of sales volume. It comes from a relatively short list of customers, and that's because we primarily focus on repeat business opportunity, people who value what we do and how we do it. We're not in the market to just price as much as we can and take as much business as we can and boost sales, boost the volume with a lower margin. We're very focused on the cost of how we deliver projects, and we really only want to prospect with people that understand what they get from Cosmos, how we deliver our service, and that they value that, and that's who we want to trade with. So yeah, we're just at the beginning of our 12th year in terms of the Cosmos business, and so far so good. There's been a lot of bumps in the road. A lot of people have experienced those same bumps, but we're still pitching forward and upwards, so it's going okay.
So I'm keen to come back to the client base, and actually that aspect that you've got a small client base that come back quite often. If I can come back to that in a minute. What led you to set up Cosmos in the first place?
Well, that's a good question. I think having been a partner in another main contracting business, I've been in contracting since I left school in 1990. I trained as a quantity surveyor, so construction's all I know.
Yeah.
And having been a partner in a well-recognised contractor for 8 or 9 years prior to starting this business, the reason I left that business was pretty much down to the atmosphere and circumstances surrounding the 2009 crash. Pleased to say that business is still going, insofar as I'm aware, it's going strong. But it was time emotionally and from an energy point of view and emotionally dealing with the 2 years of the downturn. I felt time was right for me to leave. And I think, having been in that position, it was a case of aged late 30s I was at the time, and it was a case of if I'm going to try and do something on my own, it's now or never.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was no great master plan. There was no great, I'm going to do this, I'm going to conquer the world. It was I need to go and make a living to support my family, and shall I go and get a job with someone else, or shall I have a go myself? And I chose the let's have a go myself option. And here we are.
It seems to have paid off, Chris.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate. The previous business I worked with, the owners of that business were very trusting. The owners at the time were very trusting in me. I joined that business in 2003. And if anybody wants to look up my LinkedIn profile, they'll see who they are, and anybody that knows me knows who they are. I was very fortunate that the people that owned that business in 2003 trusted me trusted me as being a kind of one of the main instigators of a plan and strategy for growth. And I think those of us that were involved, because I'm always very careful to say it wasn't just me, but those of us that were involved in that journey, we grew that business from a circa £3 million turnover in 2003 to I think it peaked at somewhere around 24, 25 million in 2009. And then what happened after that was the impact of the market decline and the impact of the worldwide financial situation. But what it did give me was a blueprint. You know, it gave me a blueprint for, you know, what are the do's and the don'ts. I had a great mentor, a chap called James Andrew, who I'm happy to mention by name, and I'm sure and I hope he wouldn't be unhappy to be mentioned. But James, a great mentor of mine when I worked at Morrison Spottiswoode back in the late 90s and early noughties. And I actually took James onto the board of that business as a non-exec director, and James was a great mentor. In setting up my own business, being Cosmos, I had a great blueprint of, you know, when you learn by your mistakes, all the things that I got wrong. You know, it's the old golf course architect. It's the golf course architect kind of analogy, isn't it? The things that I got wrong in the last project, I got right in the next one. So I'm not saying, you know, we got everything right this time round, but you know, that journey was very helpful. That previous chapter journey was extremely helpful in terms of, you know, if you do this, that happens. If you don't do this, that happens. And in the early days, the motivation was not to be, you know, have a brand position, have a market position. The motivation was to try and earn a living, and have a small team and have a small number of customers who, at that time, were probably more friends. You know, they were equally. You know, there was a friendship as strong as the kind of client contractor relationship, and that's what got us started. And I went from, you know, if you imagine the corporate office with the glass partitions and the nice fit out, I went from that in you know, the autumn of 2011 to early summer 2012. I was working, if anybody listening is familiar with the Gorbals area of Glasgow, working in the attic of an industrial unit in the Gorbals on my own. So I went from having a team of, you know, senior leadership team of directors and senior managers sitting around a hypothetical board table, if you want to imagine that sort of image in your mind's eye. I went from that, and somewhere around 6 or 7 months later, I was in an attic with no window to the outside world on my own, but buoyed with the idea of, you know, let's give this a go, and also encouraged by some close relationships who were standing in front of me and willing to be supportive of business opportunity and, you know, ultimately sales. Because you ain't start a business if you've not got a route to sales. So that's where we started in 2012.
How much did that supportive environment help you in hindsight, do you think? Because it sounds like you surrounded yourself by some key people that had your back.
Well, I mean, everybody needs encouragement. I think as a species, as humans, you need reassurance. You need reassurance from your mum and dad. You need reassurance from, you know, in a business context, you need reassurance from your peer group that you're valued, that, you know, you're capable of something, that you're valued, and that you've got something to offer that people are interested in or willing to pay for, or you know, and so I think it's hugely important, because coming off the back of, you know, the departure, you know, departure from a senior position in an organisation is not comfortable. It's not an employee scenario where you go in one day and decide, I've got a new job, so there, Mr. Boss, here's my resignation, I'm giving you 4 weeks notice. You know, it's not like that. It's a lot less comfortable than that, you know, than anybody who's been through it will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's when there's investments and shareholding and you know, other contractual agreements. It's not straightforward. So I think, and having been in that successful position and having had the recognition in my peer group and marketplace that went with that successful position to being, well, you kind of find yourself being nobody, because you don't have that email account any longer, you don't have a business card any longer, your phone number's changed.
So it was like a change in identity.
Well, exactly. So you find yourself sitting, because I remember very well sitting thinking things. I wonder if anyone will phone me again. I wonder if people, I wonder if people will want to have any kind of ongoing relationship with me, because I'm not that person anymore. I don't have that hat any longer, whatever analogy you want to use, but that's not me. Yeah. So you kind of go from being at the crest of the wave, which we weren't really at the crest of any wave in 2000, and the period between 09 and 11 was tough. There's a lot of cutting and redundancies and a lot of the negative things that go with being in business during a downturn. So, but to go back to your original question, you need a confidence boost. You need, I certainly felt I needed somebody to be saying to me in my ear, on you go.
Yeah. You can do it.
Go. You can do it, exactly. You can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to. You can do it. Look at what you've achieved there. You're well regarded in the market, and some people actually were I can reflect back with some fondness to some people who actually were giving me a boot up the backside and saying, "Come on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Get that together."
So what were the pivotal moments then from being that guy in the attic? And you're clearly not in an attic now. You're doing very well. You've got a successful company. A good number of people working for you. What are the pivotal moments in the timeline between the guy in the attic and the guy in the boardroom now?
Pivotal moments. I think the first 3 years is in this sector. The first 3 years is the hardest, because this sector is very driven by accreditation and competency standards. Health and safety is obviously an enormous feature of what we do, because we work in one of the highest harm industries in existence. So the first 2 or 3 years is the hardest. If you have ambition to grow, and my where I wanted to be was to be working with some of the customer base and consult. Some of that was direct customers, some of that was consultant driven. So our route to market would be via consultants. And a lot of these people that I had familiarity with, and who I had in my sights as being sales opportunities going forward, were representing, clients, funds, whatever, who had kind of strict prerequisite ingredients that any potential contractor looking to work with them had to tick certain boxes, and that's mostly to do with accreditations and competency and financials. So you need to be trading for a number of these competency accreditations. You need to be trading for a predetermined period of time, and you have to have had 3 sets of accounts filed with Companies House and blah 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 before they'll even entertain you, before they even entertain a contact. So the first 2 or 3 years is definitely the hardest.
Yeah.
You're kind of it's kind of hand to mouth, day to day. You're not doing an awful lot of planning at that point. You're just trying to make sure I loved it, I have to say. I learned so much. I've always, as I said earlier on, I've got a commercial background, trained and qualified as a quantity surveyor. So I've always been, in terms of hands-on, the types of hands-on jobs that I would have had over the years, would always have been in the commercial financial corner, and the delivery, safety management and delivery would always have been, someone else. There would have been someone else who had that skill set at the table, who had accountability and responsibility for that. So one of the things I did during that sort of first 2 or 3 years was take myself off and do, some studying and some qualification gaining, and not to impress anybody, just for my own purposes, just to gratify myself in terms of knowledge and making sure I had relevant and required knowledge. I quite enjoyed that, I have to say.
There's that phrase, isn't there? You got to learn before you earn.
Exactly. And if you want to be, I think, no, I was going to say, if you want to be, it's not for me to say what you need to do to get to where I am, but in my journey, it's been hugely beneficial for me to actually have had to do jobs, management jobs and physical jobs within this business in the early days that otherwise I wouldn't have gotten close to, because that has given me an understanding of delivery, an understanding of programming, and an understanding of the issues that facet of the business faces in terms of the daily challenges of delivering clients' needs. And that helps me to support our construction team as it stands today. In terms of going back to the original question about the milestones, the first big milestone was that kind of 3-year point where we could start to get a sort of accreditation library. You could start to have some logos on your letterhead, and people who maybe wouldn't look at you from year 1 and 2, when you get to year 3 and your accounts are looking fairly healthy, and you've got reasonable retained earnings relative to your sales volume, then doors start to open, and people who were maybe throwing you a bone in the first few years actually start to give you opportunity to do something with a bit more meat on it. So and that, if you look at the sales sort of curve from 2014-15 is when it really started to take a hike, and there was a bit of luck, and you need luck. You need to be in the place to get luck. I always say to people, luck is really important, but you need to be, if you want to win the lottery, you need to buy a ticket. So if you win it, it's really lucky, but you need to have the ticket first. So you kind of have to be in the right place to get the luck. But a turning point for us was 2014-15, when the business had enough behind it and enough of a pipeline. Because the problem you have when you're a small operator is you don't really have a pipeline. You don't have, as I said before, I used the phrase earlier, hand to mouth. That is very much like that. You're doing small projects which start and finish in 2, 3, 4 weeks. So you do, very difficult to plan ahead, and you want to employ to grow the business, you want to employ people, but it's the kind of chicken and egg,
what do you do first?
To make a commitment to pay someone a big salary, who is going to make a big difference to your business. So that turning point when we started to get the opportunities with a bit more meat in the bones was when we brought some people, some senior people started to join the business who were all familiar to me from sort of previous chapter in the career. So and that was a big turning point, because then the marketplace looks at you and thinks, such and such has gone there and such has gone there. They're obviously serious about whatever they're doing,
So tell us about the client base then. How do you retain great clients like you've got? You said you've got a smallish client base, but it's great repeat business. How do you do that? If somebody's sitting thinking, I'd love to have that, how do you keep customers coming back and wanting more, apart from the obvious answer of just doing a great job? What are the other things that go into that?
Well, I think a big thing for me has been the continuation of, I'll use the word, I'm not a great fan of kind of trendy buzzwords, but the culture and the DNA of the business is what allows it to prevail today, and what allows it to continue to be, the values and the DNA of the business today be a version of what they were in the early days, which is me wanting everything to be better. You know, when I started and I was servicing people face to face, and I was turning up on jobs in the month, you know, starting on Monday and landing cabins, you know, taking deliveries of materials, whatever it would be, wanting that to be the best it could be, wanting programming to be as detailed as possible, and just the thought that goes into things to be the extra mile, you know, to second guess, you know, because a lot of customers, you know, and I don't mean this with, you know, I think that I can say, you know, without saying, I don't mean this with any amount of disrespect. Customers come to us because they don't do what we do.
Yeah.
So customers need us to deliver the service that we deliver, because it's not their thing, right? Because let's face it, if you can paint a room in your house, you paint it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, I think there's certain people in the world will capitalise on weaknesses. So there's and I'm using that as a backdrop for what we do, which is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
We try and take our customers by the hand and say, look, this is what you need. We understand what you're trying to achieve here, but this is what you need. This is the whole package. Now, if you take, I'm maybe not explaining that very well, but that's how we work, is to take clients by the hand and try and educate them as to, this is what we think you need, and this is what that will cost. We don't have a big commercial team in this business, and the reason we don't have a big commercial team is we don't need one, because we like to work with clients who at the beginning of the job, we tell them this is how much this is going to cost. Now, obviously there's change. Change happens because there's things that are unforeseen, or people change their mind, or things get added. So, you know, change is a thing, but we would be very, you know, change for us would be very much client driven, and not something where we're looking at, well, you missed that, or you didn't tell us about this. So guess what, Mr. Client, that's going to cost you X. That's just not our approach. You know, our approach is to go in with a price that we think is the right price for what we understand that customer needs.
Yes.
And so therefore, and that you know, that, and that's not unique. You know, I'm not saying we're the only people out there that do that and have that approach, but that's always been the way I've, you know, and that's maybe, and that comes largely from my commercial background, because I've worked for contractors in the past, and I'm not faulting anyone per se, but I always had ambition to be involved in, you know, the management side of a business, and understanding the kind of bigger picture of the sales journey, from, you know, from how do you prospect for opportunity, you know, what do you target, who do you target, why would you target them, you know, what is it about, what makes a target, how does that target then get converted into an opportunity, and through the pipeline of a bid, a delivery, a final account, and move on to the next job. And so many people that I work for put so much work into the front end, with lots of people doing lots of great jobs, you know, marketing and business development, and putting spectacular documents together that, you know, just positioned that business, you know, fantastically in the market, and then they get the job. They then, a kind of commercial assault process starts, where all the holes and all the bits that are missing turn into a big extra bill that gets thrown at the poor client, who's going, I didn't know what. I've reported upstream that this job's costing X, and that's, you know, we're only 2 weeks in, and you're telling me it's costing X plus 20-30%. You know, I'm now looking like I can't do my job. This is Mr. Client I'm talking about. You know, so all the work that's going on at the front end, it gets that opportunity, and then at the end of that job, that customer doesn't want to work with you again.
Yeah, it's a waste.
I saw so many examples of that, and I thought, that surely can't be the way to. That's not the way. The way is this partnership, working together, partnering. Partnering is a big thing in this industry.
Yeah,
it's got to be partnering has got to be the way forward. And when I you know, I guess in the early days, it was me. It was my name. It was my name above the door. It was me that went to every job. I was the prospector. I was the bidder. You know,
yeah.
I did the quotes. You know, I ran the jobs. I did the final accounts, and I held the hands of those relationships. And that's, you know, I'm not saying, well, obviously now at the level, at the size that we are now, that doesn't happen anymore. But the DNA that's bled through the business, which comes from me,
yep.
is that's the way we service our customers and people joining the business. That's, you know, that's the template of this is how we work.
Sounds good, and it's obviously brought you significant success in your sector. So, congratulations on that. But just as we close, then, what thoughts or advice would you have for people who perhaps are earlier on in their business journey, as to, you know, what they should do to get success?
Well, I think you have to have, if you're, I don't know if there's one answer to that, but if you're wanting to replicate something similar to what we've achieved here at Cosmos, you have to have a vision, you have to have a direction, you have to have the silver bullet, you know, you have to have some kind of USP that makes you stand out from the rest, and you have to surround yourself with good people. I wouldn't be sat here with where I am today without some of the great people that I've got in my team, from top to bottom, from apprentices right up to the senior leadership team at board level. You have to surround yourself with good people. Don't burn yourself out. You know, recognize when it's time to add, you know, time to start putting a team together, and don't burn yourself out, because if you burn yourself out, you burn out your flame, and then you're not delivering your promises. And so that's, you know, that's a real kind of watershed point. You have to be able to recognize and stick with it, enjoy it, and
some great sound bites and great advice from somebody who's walked the walk. So thanks for sharing your wisdom with us and your thoughts. Congratulations on your success so far, and hope you have even more in the future, Chris. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.